Welcome to the sound of the start of your weekend. It's the NTT20 betting show sponsored by Sky Bet. This show is him, George Ellick, and me, Ali Maxwell, making betting picks ahead of a full slate of EFL action. It is for over 18s only. Betting comes with risks. If you're thinking of placing a bet this weekend or any time, make sure that you are gamble aware before you do so. Understand the risks that come with betting. Head to gambleaware.org to brush up on them. Last week went pretty well on the pod in terms of our betting picks, in that we both got our naps up. George's winner was Crew in the Crew Derby. Crew projecting as basically the best team in League Two through 4 games now, winning at 17-20. Birmingham, who we were giving big guns as being the greatest team of all time, did win, but it's probably the luckiest winner I'll have all season, so can't pretend it was a particularly impressive pick, but it was a winner at 13-10 with those 2 injury time goals to turn around and win it at Blackburn. So a fun start to the betting show season proper on that front. Your next best Oldham was no good, but great debut for the Acker swerve. Bristol City successfully swerved, drawing 0-0 at home to Charlton. And your goal scorer pick, Alfie Kilgore at 22-1, went very close in Bristol Rovers' game.
He effectively assisted their goal with a effort that was parried out and then stabbed in.
Next time.
Yeah.
Pretty underwhelming start for Ali's Acker with 2 out of 5, and no luck in my goal scorer corner debut either. We'll get into that when I get to that segment. But overall, a pretty strong start to the season so far for our best bets. I think we've basically won all 6 so far in the 3 shows that we've done. What's your nap this weekend? Your best bet in the EFL?
I am off to League 2, where I'm putting up Barnet to beat Cheltenham Town at 21-20 with Sky Bet. There is League 1 and League 2 comes off the back of a midweek slate of fixtures that we haven't covered on the main pod feed, that you and Matt did very well to cover in Under the Lights on NTT20.com, which I know a lot of you listened to and really enjoyed, and I did too. But what it means is that a lot of teams who were away from home in midweek are away from home again. The way the fixture computer's fallen is it's kind of a double away game week for some teams and a double home game week for most as well, or all even, possibly.
Yeah,
all. And that might cause some problems for some away teams, because if you've got to travel half length of the country and then come home again late on Tuesday, then go back out again on Friday or Saturday, it's not ideal in terms of travel. What I will say is Barnet are one team that have been quite kindly treated in that sense, where they went to Swindon, like not a particularly long journey, and then they go annoyingly back in the same direction a little bit further, but to Cheltenham. So it's not that they've had particularly long away trips from North London. And they came back from Swindon on Tuesday night after 3 consecutive defeats, having won the National League with over 100 points. They then finally picked up their first win back in the EFL, coming at Swindon. A Swindon side who started the season really well, and they won the game 2-0, and they were very much deserving winners of that game. And I think whether it's early season nerves or some early season bad luck, where they definitely haven't been as bad as the 0 points in 3 games suggested. The performance we saw on Tuesday night was kind of the Barnet that I think you and I were expecting that we would see.
We've shaken the bottle and the cork has popped, and it's all going to come flowing out now, just gushing Barnet left, right and centre.
Gushing Barnet. Wow. So that's obviously some very strong form. I think we might see them continue in that vein, I should say. In Cheltenham, they face a side who I would say it's between them and Shrewsbury.
Yes.
For the worst team in League 2 so far this season.
Impossible to argue.
Newport County are the 11-8 favourites for relegation, and that's shortened quite a lot since the start of the season. I think that's a bit harsh. Like, in my mind...
Shortened, has it?
Loads, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like, in my mind, they've been probably more competent than I thought they were going to be. By no means a good team, but I think it's probably more of a case of the likes of Accrington, Harrogate
are the
being
ones
better, which has meant that they've kind of come in artificially, and I can see why that's happened. But to my mind, if they're 11-8, the Cheltenham 9-4 relegation, the Shrewsbury 7-2 relegation is incredibly generous, because I don't see any reason to believe, apart from like last season's performances, which have to at some stage kind of go out the rear view mirror, out of sight. Cheltenham and Shrewsbury, in my mind, have been the worst teams so far this season. Cheltenham, of course, absolutely battered when they played MK Dons in a game that they lost 5-0. Their 2 home games so far this season saw them well beaten 2-0 by Chesterfield on the second weekend of the season. And then in midweek, they lost 2-1 to Bromley. And again, Bromley completely dominated that game, created nearly 3 expected goals to Cheltenham's 1. And Cheltenham and Bromley were 2-0 up in that game before Cheltenham got one back with about 20 minutes or so to go, but never really threatened to bring it back. So it's 4 defeats, and they've been really poor. And in Barnet, they're facing a side that I still think could be one of the best teams in the division. I think there are plenty of sides who started the season really well, the likes of Grimsby, of who is the team, Crewe, who would be odds on for this game. And it wouldn't surprise me if Barnet are much closer to that standard than they've kind of shown in their results so far. So with nothing to fear after their trip in midweek, buoyant after that win, Cheltenham looking just a very, very poor side. Anything odds against, I think, looks like a really strong bet. So 21-20 for Barnet to go 6 from 6 on the road this week.
Buoyant Barnet is what you're hoping for. You've actually come to the studio today with a bit of a buoyant Barnet.
Someone said that this morning. I think I normally try and wash my hair once every 3 or 4 days.
Okay.
I think I may have gone 5 or 6 this time.
Whoa.
And it's showing.
Huh, don't hate
But
it.
apparently if you let it go another few days,
washes itself.
Correct, yeah.
I remember that rumour. Any hair experts, is it true
experts
that hair washes itself? If so, why are we all paying for shampoo? Let us know in the comments. My best bet of the weekend in the EFL is Millwall. Draw no bet, 7-4 with Sky Bet. That's 2.75 in the decimal. Let's talk about their hosts, Sheffield United, Bramall Lane, the venue where Millwall actually won late on last season when Sheffield United were having a little wobble. Sheffield United lost 4-1 on opening day to Bristol City, lost 1-0 last weekend to Swansea. In between that, they lost to Birmingham City in the Carabao Cup. For me, that Swansea performance, albeit it was away from home rather than at home, it was in some ways as concerning as the 4-1 defeat, which obviously caught a lot of headlines on opening weekend. It was a very dramatic defeat to Bristol City. The reason I think it was as concerning, not more, as concerning, is that they gave up a very similar amount of opportunities to Swansea as they did to Bristol City, and many of them in a very similar manner. So not fixing the issues that they had on opening day. The fact that Swansea didn't score 4 and Bristol City did was broadly down to finishing, and Swansea didn't finish their chances well. Eventually, Ronald smashing in the winner, and a deserved winner it was too. But it was also the fact that at the very least, on opening day, they looked quite bright in attack, in the first half in particular, Sheffield United. But here at Swansea, the attack dried up. Didn't have a shot on target, 8 shots in total, didn't look very coherent at the top end of the pitch. So I wanted to see a response from the Bristol City game and that Birmingham game in the Cup, which, you try not to put too much into Cup performances, but the gulf between the two teams and the general level of confidence in what they were trying to do was incredibly clear. And they didn't back it. They didn't respond in the way that I would have wanted to see if I was a Blades fan at Swansea. So Mill will come to town. I think essentially based on just 3 games so far, 2 in the league, Sheffield United have clear defensive issues, and particularly in transition. Some of this is linked to team style that Sellers is trying to implement. Some of this is linked to personnel where the individuals are all struggling, particularly at centre back. The midfield balance he hasn't quite found yet as he works out how ready Soumare is to start at the base of midfield. If he isn't, he's got to use Peck there. He's been using Harmer and O'Hare in number 8 roles, and Harmer played on the left wing last season and O'Hare generally plays further forward. That balance hasn't been found yet. And then the connection in the front line hasn't been quite as good as it was last season either. He's tried out a few different players on the wing, through the middle, and I just feel like the way the whole club feels right now, there could be a bit of a sense of panic here. And maybe the response comes, and maybe a week on the training ground has got Sellers to implement something that works better. But I think if not, the atmosphere could get quite tough here towards the team, towards the owners, towards the manager as well, the man in the dugout. Now, Millwall are a massive factor here as well. We're recording on Thursday afternoon, and one big bit of context is that Japhet Tanganga is currently being strongly linked to Sheffield United, the Millwall defender, and a strong defender he is too, and I think he would improve this Sheffield United side. I might look stupid here, this will age very quickly, but I wouldn't expect the transfer to go through before the game and Tanganga to be announced in the starting lineup for Sheffield United. Normally when this sort of thing happens, and it does occasionally, the transfer either goes through after the game or it goes through and there's some sort of agreement that the player won't play in that match. So I'm not expecting Tanganga to be starting at centre-back for Sheffield United. And even if he does, well, he won't have had any training time really, just the match preparation. So for Blades, Recruitment's been really slow. They've lost 5 of the starters from the playoff final at Wembley. And 2 of the players that came off the bench have either left or, in the case of Tom Davies, have been unavailable so far this season. So 7 players that played in their playoff final are not at the club or available right now. And in terms of incomings to replace those departures, we've had only Soumare, the defensive midfielder, Louis Barry and Tyler Binden signed on loans. Those are the only ones signed realistically for first team minutes, and that's not enough in my eyes. So I think Sellers has been chucked a bit of a hospital pass, and I'm just trying to forget last season's Sheffield United. Basically, I'm trying not to let that cloud my judgment and think that there's something more about this team right now, because I think based on the amount of change that's happened and the evidence so far this season, we should be judging them on what we're seeing so far this season. And on that basis, this team isn't one of the top teams in the division. No chance. Whereas Millwall, we're still kind of working that out as well, but dark horses Millwall, away win at Norwich with a strong second half on opening weekend, home defeat to Borough with a very poor second half last weekend. I still think overall that they're likely to be a good team and one that's very well coached. Good away record under Alex Neil since he came in towards the turn of the year. 6 wins, 2 draws, 5 defeats. So to put that in PPG terms, 1.53 PPG away from home under Neil. If you look at last season's away league table, 1.53 PPG would be the 4th best away record. So good away side. They've lost at Leeds and Sunderland and Burnley, which were all understandable defeats. They're all in the Premier League now. Otherwise, they've been pretty good. So he's the sort of manager I quite like for away games. Neil, in that first and foremost, you know that out of possession and in terms of game plan, you can be pretty confident they're going to be pretty strong and pretty on it. And then on opening day against Norwich, we saw how dangerous they can be on the break with Ivanovic and Coburn up front, with Aziz and Negley off the sides. I back them to score at Bramall Lane. And I think if they do, the atmosphere could get pretty nasty. So at the prices, suggests there's a much bigger gap between the teams than I currently see. The prices suggest that Sheffield United are the superior team, even if they were playing on a neutral venue. And right now, that's not how I see it. So taking the draw out and getting 7-4 for the Millwall win, draw no bet with Sky Bet is my best bet of the weekend. Next best.
Going to League One and sticking up AFC Wimbledon to beat Barnsley at 15-8 for a few reasons. Like Barnsley have obviously made a really good start to life in League One this season under Conor Hourihane, who himself, we're learning a lot about, and he's someone that you and I know and have interviewed on the pods, and it's great to see how, because I think especially when you're a young rookie manager, you've had an okay caretaker spell where results haven't been great, but you get the job. Like people are going to judge you very quickly. It kind of reminds me a bit, even though he wasn't caretaker, of Mike Dodds at Wycombe, where it feels like the knives have come out for Dodds quickly this season because the back end of last season wasn't particularly good. So for Hourihane to get off to a good start, I think is really important. However, and I'm not going to, there's every chance they go on to be a good side, but I do think the fixture computer has probably been much kinder to them than we thought, because away to Plymouth Argyle on opening day looked like a really hard first game for them, a team just relegated. They beat them 3-1. And since then, Argyle have been absolutely terrible, right? Next up, they host Burton. They beat Burton 3-2 with a last-minute goal. Mm-hmm. Burton have been really, really poor either side of that, and they just about got over the line there. Yeah, the 1-1 draw with Bolton's a good result. They probably would have won the game if it wasn't for the red card. McAtee scoring late and Bolton have been strong. But then again, they go to Peterborough and they win the game 1-0, which is obviously a good result, but Peterborough have been shocking this season. So arguably, Burton were probably always likely to struggle, but their 3 wins have always been, the 3 wins have come against 3 of the worst 4 or 5 teams in the league so far this season. Mm-hmm. And in AFC Wimbledon, probably one of the teams who we anticipated to be one of the worst teams in the league. I think the evidence is anything but. I think they've been really, really impressive. They were so unlucky to lose on opening day against Luton with that ridiculous own goal. They've won 2 games, at home against Lincoln, which was helped by a red card, but they still did it pretty well. And they went to Reading and they beat Reading 2-1 in a really strong performance. And it was only a Lewis Wing wonder goal that stopped them winning that game even more comfortably to 0. The defeat to midweek against Cardiff will be frustrating because they conceded in the 93rd minute, but again, home against Cardiff, and they've held them pretty well and they've had chances themselves. I just think they look like a team that are maybe, the pre-season rating was quite bad. The results so far, it's a couple of wins and a couple of defeats, but I think they've been impressive in defeat up against a side that have maybe been flattered by their opposition, and again, opposition that probably the market has thought were better than they were at the time they've been playing them. So for Barnsley to be like strong favourites going into this one, I'm not entirely sure I agree. I think Dons are, who were very good at home last season for the most part, who come in with a really strong defensive unit too. I fancy them to have a decent go at this, and I think they're a big price at 15-8.
Yeah, I like that. On to goal scorer corner, where last week we had Devon Matthews 28-1 anytime, didn't have a shot for Aki. Going to leave him for now, keep him in the back of our mind. Tristan Kramer also didn't have a shot, but we did have Alfie Kilgore on the short list. Those two, Kilgore went close. You had him for your goal scorer pick, so that was somewhat encouraging. There's been a ton of centre-back goals scored already over the first few weeks of the season. It's been a great start for many CB goal scorer backers, including the lads I mentioned last week on the Anytime Notebook. We had a short list of midfielders and attackers as well, or a long list really. Kai Whitmore at 9-1, he had 2 shots but didn't score. Apter at 7-1 had a good shot on target saved against Bristol City. Hegerber 11-4 was a tough watch in that early kickoff, in that he played really well and looked every inch the player that I hoped he was. But when he was best placed to finish a cutback, he sliced it wide, and West Brom scored like 5 seconds later through Price. Quadwo Bar was dropped. Gelhard 3-1 I mentioned, scored against Oxford. Sargent 9-4 scored. Ivanovic 9-4, no shot. So interesting long list performance. This week I'm not going to go through a super long list. I've boiled it down to just my 3 picks. Starting with in the Championship, Joe Gelhard, 100-30.
Joffy.
Scored against Oxford last Sunday. Had quite a lot of shots against Oxford last Sunday.
Very lively throughout, yeah.
Very lively throughout, says the man that watched that game and didn't want him to be lively throughout, but has to admit that he was. He was 3-1 last week, 130, so a little bit longer this time out. They're at home to Blackburn, who obviously are rated higher than Oxford, a slightly tougher opposition. But I'm happy to go back in here because I think Joffy Gelhardt's going to have a breakout season. I think shorter prices than this are going to be on the horizon, so I want to benefit from this kind of pro Gelhardt stance early on this season. One big reason is the way that their attack is looking at the moment is that McBurney, who also scored, but I think of as a great facilitator. If you're a wide forward or a number 10 playing with McBurney, I think that makes you more likely to get chances and score goals because he's fantastic at bringing others into play, and he plays with his head up, and he will pass when others are better placed. Gelhardt's an absolute shot monster, and Casey Palmer's looking pretty good as well. He's another massive facilitator who'd much rather pass than shoot himself. So I think Gelhardt's got good teammates for goal scoring this season and is in a good spot. 130 at home to Blackburn, 1 point, and also a point on Laurent Tolai of Port Vale. He's 11-4. That's 3.75 the decimal with Sky Bet. He was absolutely sparkling in midweek against Stevenage, even in defeat and even in being overshadowed in the end by Jamie Reid, who scored 2 fantastic goals late on to win the game for Stevenage. Tolai was sensational. Stockley's injured at the moment, so he started up front. Ronan Curtis kind of playing off him. There's a chance Mo File might come in for this game at home to Donny, and he might play off File, who's more of a target. But what I love about Tolai is that he's so many different types of player in one. He's that really nice all-round striker that I think is very rare to find at League 1 and League 2 level, in that he's got enough physicality and work rate and kind of appetite for a fight to impose himself physically, but he's also got mobility, runs the channels. He's also got technical quality. He can shoot off both feet. He's good on the turn. He can create shots for himself, as he did a couple of times in midweek. He scored a lovely goal as well. And I think he's in just fine form at the moment. So at home to Donny at 11-4, Laurent Tolai of Port Vale. It's also because Donny are playing well and getting results. Port Vale are playing pretty well without getting the results. And I think there could be a Vale result that might surprise people here. And I just can't get past how dangerous Tolai is looking, having had, 12 shots in 4 games to start the season. And then a centre-back to finish us off, half a point on a centre-back that plays for the team you've backed in your next best, Wimbledon, at home to Barnsley. It's only Ryan Rhino Johnson at 18-1, taking half a point. Now, there's an elephant in the room when it comes to Rhino Johnson. It's like Safari in the studio because it's 2 years this weekend since his first and only goal for Wimbledon, which is not ideal.
There are some horses that don't win all year, then at the same weekend,
really?
Just come alive at a certain time of the year. Yeah.
Wow, horses for courses, horses for dates.
Another animal.
What's
you
going
don't see
on
horses
here?
on safari though, do you?
Unbelievable.
Rhinos for courses.
Rhino's had 50 shots since his last goal for Wimbledon.
No,
That's a lot.
This is Joe Rodon all over again.
It is a bit. This is Jacob Badeau, Joe Rodon, Ryan Johnson, the guys who are showing up on the stat sheet for having shots from set pieces, but who seemingly can't head the ball anywhere near the goal.
50p heads.
There's a concern here that he's got an oddly shaped head. I have to be honest.
Rhinos do.
Yes, they do. We saw it in the own goal he scored against Luton on opening day, where that wasn't where he wanted to head the ball and he just flicked it in. But I'm hopeful that it's Rhino time, right? And you might argue that it's been Rhino time for like a year now, probably if you backed him every weekend. But one of the reasons I think it's time is that Barnsley have faced the most set-piece shots so far. And as you say, they haven't played particularly strong opposition. They haven't played particularly strong set-piece threat opposition either, but they have faced 22 shots in 4 games from set pieces. They're not a big bunch, this Barnsley side. Harahan's going for quite sexy football, and at the back, they're not big and beefy, and nor are they a midfielder up top. The back 4 in their last game of Ogbeta, Earl, Shepherd and Watson. Maybe De Givigny will be back here, but he's not a dominant aerial defender either. So I think Wimbledon can impose themselves. Joe Lewis picked up an injury in midweek, so won't be available. So I'm assuming Ogundere, Johnson and Harbottle. Harbottle does have a better career goal-scoring record than Johnson, but Johnson seems to get more shots away. So maybe one of them will accidentally fly in the top corner. It's time. The Rhino soars. Ryan Johnson, 18-1. Wimbledon, half a point. That's goal scorer corner. Joe Gelhard, 100-30. Laurent Talai, 11-4. Ryan Johnson, 18-1.
I've got one as well.
Go on.
My long shot this week. It won't always be, but this week it is a goal scorer. Tomoki Iwata,
nice.
At Birmingham City, taking on my beloved Oxford United.
Ooh,
now,
controversial.
Well, yes and no. Iwata was not known for his goal-scoring prowess before turning up at St Andrews, and last season he scored 6 goals, and I can basically picture them all. Mm-hmm. Just beautifully struck strikes.
Lovely.
From approximately 20 yards into the bottom corner.
Yeah.
And I think the reason why Iwata was so good at that, well, firstly, because he's obviously someone who can strike the ball purely, but because of the opposition that Birmingham faced last season, they played teams that would sit incredibly deep and try and frustrate them for space. And I think in Gary Rowett's Oxford, they're going to come up against a very similar test, where I imagine, A, because of the poor start to the season, and B, because Michael Helik and Elliot Moore are likely to start as our defensive duo again, who, frankly, the idea of Stansfield and Kyogo pressing them on the ball with space in behind just makes me absolutely terrified. I'm sure Gary Rowett will be doing anything he can to ensure that doesn't happen. So in my mind, we'll drop incredibly deep. We'll try and follow that blueprint of making them try and unpick a lock rather than giving them space to do so. And in that sense, I imagine that we've seen Kyogo and Stansfield really benefit from much more open games this season. In particular, Stansfield, who's looked brilliant. And Kyogo, obviously, both in the cup game against Sheffield United, where he had about 15 shots, the danger he caused Ipswich. I think this is going to look very different, and it might be frustrating for those kind of players because they're not going to have that space to try and exploit. And that's where players like Iwata will pop up. He's already had 3 shots this season. He forced a save against Ipswich. He forced a save, I think, last time out against Blackburn. Had a couple of shots against Ipswich. I think he's basically going to have a lot of ball within about 25 yards of goal. And for that reason, I'm sure he'll have a couple of efforts. And what we saw last season is he's quite good at finishing those off. So he's 10-1 to score first and 4-1 to score any time. And I'll split my points across those two.
It's time for the Yaka. Renamed for week 2. It's not Ali Zaka anymore. We hated that initially. We needed to move away from that pretty quickly. Best suggestion we've had so far. Maxwell's Multi. Still a little bit unimaginative fantasy team name.
All right. Okay, what's the best you've had so far then?
Ali Axwell. Which could end up being something of an ironic nickname if this segment doesn't go well. I would
say is more a lame fantasy football team name.
Ali Axwell.
Yeah.
I think it's cleverer than Maxwell's Multi.
Okay, you do it. And
we're still taking suggestions. Do you know who suggested Ali Axwell?
You.
Keith Eggman.
Amazing
from
name.
Twitter.
See, that's a better name.
Yeah.
Let's call it Keith Eggman.
Okay, the Keith Eggman this week is a 5-fold, as it was last week, hoping to certainly do better than 2 out of 5. It's at 58.35 with Sky Bet. And it's got Millwall draw no bet, my best bet of the weekend. Already discussed the reasoning for that. Millwall draw no bet is leg 1. It's got Bradford at Peterborough. Bradford are dynamic, powerful, confident, all the things that Peterborough are not right now. And at the moment, I'm finding it difficult to see light at the end of the tunnel for Peterborough. The way that they are playing, they've lost a lot of their attacking verve, which is something you can normally rely on, and defensively just look really poor. Then I've got 3 in League 2. I've got Barnet. You've already broken that down pretty well. It's your nap. They're at Cheltenham. And I've also got Swindon at home to Shrewsbury. 1.8, a shorty, but Shrews in crisis right now. Absolutely no doubt about that. 4-1 defeat on Wednesday night against Notts County. Swindon, looks like Harry Smith picked up a bad injury in midweek, which, instinctively you think that's a shame for them for many reasons, and obviously horrible for him from a Swindon kind of team rating point of view. It feels like a big miss. But then I remember that Andy Cook got injured last season on New Year's Day for Bradford, and Andy Cook took up quite a lot of their attacking focus because he's such a focal point, and they got better without him. And I actually think the way that Holloway Swindon play doesn't necessitate a big target man striker up front. They've got lots of good attacking players, and in a weird way, I'm kind of intrigued to see how they might look without Smith there as the obvious target man to hit. So let's see. They're at home to Shrews, and I expect them to win, even if Swindon lost at home to Barnet in midweek. I think they'll bounce back. And last but not least, the fifth selection and the biggest price, in fact, Cambridge at Bristol Rovers, 2.88 the decimal with Sky Bet. I think Cambridge might be quite a serious defensive side looking at the numbers. Spent quite a long time on the Opta Analyst site last night, and you can get a lot from the Opta Analyst site. Like, as a free resource, that might go straight to the top of the tree for the EFL. You can get unbelievable detail for individual matches on whatever you can want, basically.
Brilliant.
Sort of stuff that Opta used to sell for quite a lot of cash money, and now they make available for free for us. And one of my takeaways was Cambridge, serious defensive side. They have faced the fewest shots in the league in League 2. They have the lowest XG against in League 2. They are and have been a tough nut to crack.
Neil Harris, nice to meet you.
Neil Harris, nice to meet you. Going forward, 12th for XG after 4 games, 5th most shots. Pretty busy, not necessarily the best quality of shots, but doing a few bits and bobs on that front. They're against Bristol Rovers, at Bristol Rovers, whose 0 draw against Oldham in midweek sort of seemed to be seen as the start of a step in the right direction. I mean, it's not a great result. It wasn't a fantastic performance. It was probably better than we saw in their first 2 games of the season. I'm nowhere near a believer just yet in Bristol Rovers. I need to see them put together a whole 90 minutes where they look like they have confidence, coherence, particularly going forward, but also at the back, where obviously kept a clean sheet in midweek. And Cambridge beat them 2-0 in the Cup 10 days ago at the Mem. I just think they're right now a better organised and more serious side. And I think it's a good price, 2.88 for the Cambridge away win. So that's the 5-fold. It's at 58.35. This week's Keith Eggman has Millwall draw no bet, Bradford in League 1, Barnet, Swindon, Cambridge in League 2.
So I've got 2 ideas, but they're both bad.
Okay. I knew you were cooking something up as I was talking there.
No, but they're not good though.
That's
it's
okay.
A shame.
Well, just get them out there. There's no such thing as a bad idea. We're ideating.
There's a tradition of alleys having a nickname which is something than alley. Yeah?
Okay.
Chemical Alley.
Okay. Any others?
No. Coupondering Alley.
Coupondering.
Yeah?
Okay. Yeah.
Because you're pondering coupons.
Yeah.
And then
I see the
sticking
logic.
with the coupon theme, but using the Eggman.
Right.
Egg coupon. Like an egg cup.
Egg coupon.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
Well, we've got quite a lot to think about, and we will do that. And we'll see what name we come up with next week for the Keith Eggman. Right, enough of that. Time for an Acca Swerve.
Yeah. That's what I should have done when you came into Studio Ale on Monday. I know what it's like, okay? Saturday morning, you've been out the night before, it's getting towards the first game, 12:30, and you're like, I need to get my Acca on. And you get a phone out, you get the Sky Bet app up on, you can barely see properly, you're just like clicking all the ones that are short. If you get to Huddersfield and you're like, whoa, they're 1920, click them. No Huddersfield. Get out of it.
Okay.
Put them away.
Yep.
Put them away.
Yep.
In midweek, Huddersfield hosted Doncaster, and there was a huge market move towards Doncaster over the course of Tuesday, which meant they ended up going off the kind of prices that would suggest if they were to play at a neutral ground, they would be basically pick 'em level prices.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
And Huddersfield went on to win the game 2-0. So you'd think, well, that was silly. But actually, Doncaster were probably the better side up until the first goal and would have been deserving to go ahead before the half-time break. Half-time break? That's nice. And yet, here they are hosting a Stevenage side that have been rampant so far this season, who are in fine form, who come off the back of a 2-1 away win in midweek, who I would rank as being a better team than Doncaster. And Huddersfield are odds on. Can't really see it. Yes, the results for the most part have been good, but they obviously had the defeat against Blackpool. I think results at the moment are better than performances, unlike Stevenage, who I think look like a really nasty opposition for any team at the moment. And under Alex Ravel have both a very good team on paper, of which they have, depth might be an issue at some point in the season, but right now they've got Jamie Reid, top goal scorer in the league, and the underlying numbers are generally good. So I can't really see why Huddersfield are so much shorter for this than they were against Donny in midweek.
Yeah, so this week, currently at 35.43 with Sky Bet, the six-fold BTTS ACCA. Of course, all prices quoted on this show are correct as of time of recording early Thursday afternoon, but are subject to change. So at just a little nicer than 34-1, George, your three?
Hull Blackburn. Hull's home game last weekend finished 3-2. They were really good in possession. I watched the game, as I said, was really impressed by them, but defensively were really poor. I think Blackburn should have enough to cause them issues, but I think Hull are going to be a side to follow for goals, judging by what I saw, especially at home, with just McBurney, Gelhardt, Lundstrom. It's pretty good. Sheffield Ndala, yeah. Sheffield United, Millwall next up. I think Blades again under Sayers are going to be just loads of goals, especially at home. They look so open defensively, but obviously still have a lot of very good attacking players in Harmer, in Louis Barry, in Tyrese Campbell. Their last home game was that 4-1 game, which basically could have finished any score up to kind of 4 goals on either side. It was so open. And Millwall, I think the days of Millwall being dour Millwall are over, yet they're still always priced up to be unders games, basically, which I don't really agree with. And finally, Wrexham, Sheffield Wednesday. Pierce Charles is injured for Wednesday, which means they're going to have a rookie keeper in goal. Wrexham's games at home are always really end-to-end. It was the same against Baggies the other day. But Wednesday, I still maintain playing better than they're kind of perceived to be. Their first 11 is still pretty good. They still have Barry Bannon playing centre midfield. They still carry a bit of a goal threat. So even though I expect Wrexham to win this, I'd be surprised if Wednesday weren't able to cause a Wrexham side that have really struggled defensively some issues too. So Hull Blackburn, Sheffield United, Millwall and Wrexham Wednesday.
Yeah, nice. In League One, I've got Plymouth Argyle and Blackpool, just simply the two worst defences in the league so far by any metric you choose to choose. Any metric you choose to choose. They are the two worst defences in the league. And even if you just want to use your eyes, the two worst defences in the league so far this season. And both of them offering a little more going forward, I think it's fair to say. Harrogate, Chesterfield in League 2. Obviously, Chesterfield favourites to win this game and bounce back from midweek defeat at Gills. But Harrogate, kind of a sneaky good attack, particularly quick attacks in transition, which I think is a bit of an Achilles heel for Chesterfield. So we're talking Mikulski, who's stepped up really well, having moved up a league over the summer and looks like a real handful and will be therefore for Chesterfield centre-backs. And then the supporting cast of Duke McKenna, Reece Smith, Ellis Taylor, all of them either scoring or going close in the last couple of games. Chesterfield themselves, very good in attack, would expect them to score at Harrogate. And then back to League One to finish, Port Vale and Donny. I've already mentioned, I think Laurent Tolai is good value to score. I'm expecting a really competitive game, and I'm incredibly intrigued by how this one will go. You mentioned Doncaster's price coming in heavily in midweek in their game against Huddersfield, which suggested a certain something about Donny's level of performances. And then I think Vale have had a few moves as well, haven't they? Every week.
Punted off the boards every week, yeah.
Punted off the board. So I'm fascinated by how this one will look. Two teams up from League 2 last season. Donny have picked up a lot of points early this season. Vale haven't, but could it be a surprise scoreline on that front? Vale have taken the most shots in League One so far. Somewhat of a surprise. Mostly quite bad shots, it should be said. But Talai's going to score. Doncaster are going to score. BTTS, yes. The sixfold, Hull, Blackburn, Sheffield United, Millwall and Wrexham, Sheffield Wednesday in the Championship. In League One, we've got Plymouth Argyle and Blackpool and Port Vale and Doncaster. And then Harrogate versus Chesterfield in League 2. The price is 35.43 with Sky Bet as we record. There we go. Time for the weekend.
This is the sound.
Time for the sound of the start of it. Thanks to the reverters. Thanks to Sky Bet for sponsoring Not the Top 20 podcast. And thank you to you for listening. Let us know any thoughts for a new name for Ali Zaka next week, currently called the Keith Eggman. Cheers. Go well.